raise your glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Everything will last. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 298 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. That number 300 is looming closer. And who have we got planned for episode 300? Do you know? No, you don't know.
No, I don't know.
It's a
No.
surprise.
Yeah.
But anyway, how you doing, Gazza?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Welcome all. Welcome all out there in listener land. Hope everybody out there is doing well and looking forward to this episode. Always nice to get sort of guests on. Always nice to get guests on from over the pond, as they say. And really looking forward to what this guy's got to talk to us about.
Indeed. Now, as you know, as I've done it many times on this podcast before, when I find a new podcast that I find interesting, I'll always reach out to them and see if they want to come on and tell us a little bit more about their show. A, because I'm nosy, and B, because I think you guys will really enjoy it. So, Hopper Dailey, probably the coolest name we've ever had on the show.
Yeah, definitely the coolest name.
Yeah. How are you doing? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your show?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hopper Dailey, and I am probably the least qualified person to ever do a true crime podcast. I listen to these podcasts all the time, and they have true crime investigators and autopsy technicians, and I'm over here being a past bartender, sales rep, stager. But true crime's always been cool to me, and I just it's something that I like listening to. I like listening to other people's podcasts, and honestly, I started reaching out to a couple of other podcasts with some case ideas that I had, just these that live in my head forever. They didn't want to do them, or they never wrote me back. So like, I'll just do them myself. So that's kind of how it got started. It was either going to be a true crime podcast or a paranormal podcast. So true crime won out by a hair.
Yeah, do you know, that's interesting because those are two of our favorite subjects, aren't they? We love paranormal and we love true crime, don't we, when we do those?
Yeah, like genuinely then when you said, oh, it's either going to be true crime or paranormal, it's like, oh, okay. You piqued my interest straight away there. Yeah, we had loads of people true crime. We had loads of sort of paranormal and sort of ghost hunters and this, that, you know. Those two topics really hit home with those guys.
Amen.
Yeah, same.
What do you think it is about true crime that gets people like hooked in? Because it's very, very popular, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, my mom and dad were always true crime, and they were watching it growing up. And I lived in this town where we had a ton of unsolved murders, and it's a small town, so it had 20,000 people, and just an unbelievable amount of murders. And there was someone murdered actually like last week there, but not unsolved because it was done in daylight. But I think that kind of fascinated me. Some of the cases I started out with were some from my hometown. So I think people it's the intrigue and the mystery and who did it, and do I need to watch my back, and what can happen? Should I protect my kids from this stuff? I don't know. It's just something that grabs people. There's so many true crime podcasts out there right now. I entered a field that had every oversaturated, but It's a cool field.
It is a cool field, and it's one of those that, you know, if it's unsolved, then that piques the interest as well. Just because of, again, you know, it's like, oh, I wonder where they are, and I really hope they get caught. And even if it is solved, it's like, well, what's the story behind it? Like, did they always set out to do that? What was the road that they took? Why did they take it? And all of that. So it sort of hits both sides. I mean, the unsolved ones, obviously, you know, people are listening just because they're curious and they're nosy. But, you know, it's the stories behind the stories as well that often pique people's interest, and fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. We've touched on it a few times. Most of the time when we've done true crime, we've had police officers who've written books come on and talk to us about some of the things that they've looked at. You know, and we've been incredibly lucky. Like, we've had a guy who was giving evidence and was asked to review the O.J. Simpson case and a few other things like that. So, you know, we've been very, very fortunate in terms of the guests that managed to come on our little show out of Cheshire in England here. So, what was your first episode? What was the first true crime that you laid down and talked about?
So the first one was Michael Negretti, and he was one that I remember when it happened. So I remember it playing out in real time. And he lived in California. He was at UCLA, and I was in Indiana. So we weren't like, it wasn't something that should be on the news, that big of a deal out there in Indiana. But it was just one little news conference, like one little news clip. And I saw this kid and I was like, he was in college. He had just left for college as his freshman year. And I was leaving for college as my freshman year. And I'm like, what do you mean he disappeared? You hear about, I don't know, kids disappearing or something like that. But this was an 18-year-old kid. And I thought, well, I don't understand. So I was fascinated with this case. And so I kind of dug into what happened and researched a little bit on him. I remember there was some fund, like a private investigator had opened up a fund for him. And here I am, 18, and I sent them like $500. I don't know where I got $500, but I remember sending them that check and being, find this kid. I'm worried about him. And he's never been found. Like, what is it? Almost 26 years now. And there's no sign of him. There was never a clue. He was in his dorm room one night playing a game. He walked down the hall and told the buddy he was playing a game with. He's like, hey, good game. You won, whatever. Walked back to his room and that was it. Wow. Nothing in the dorm room. So in that case, since there is no evidence, it's just mostly theories. And you dig through these theories. And one of the biggest theories that not a lot of people have hit on when they tell this story is that UCLA was in the middle of this cadaver trafficking. The UCLA had a wheeled body program. So people were donating their bodies to science, and the people who were running it started selling off the body parts. Right. And they made millions of dollars on this, just millions, until they got caught. And it was going on at the exact same time that Michael disappeared. And I remember hearing like that maybe they had taken homeless people and just people that no one would notice. And Michael may have been, considered maybe they thought he was a homeless person because he didn't have shoes on that night. Wow. And just took him. But that case always fascinated. There's just so many theories and explanations that could be, but none of them have proven.
So I mean, in terms of that, then obviously, investigated by the police and stuff. So no forensic evidence in his room, no signs of forced entry, just genuinely like a mystery as to what the fuck happened, sort of thing.
Yeah. And one of the weird things is he had a computer. This is 1999. So he had a computer. He was gaming that night. And the campus police took the computer for evidence and they erased it. So if there was a chat log, if he was chatting with someone, I'm going to come out and meet you, gone. They ruined it.
Wow.
And no cell phone. So it wasn't a time when cell phones were really that prevalent. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, those things that grab you like that, isn't it? Sometimes some cases will get like national attention, and others will maybe just be local attention. But isn't it curious that ones that really just hit and resonate, and something like that sat with you all this time,
yeah, no,
and will probably never get solved.
Never. I don't think. Never. I don't think it'll ever get solved. And I think his family, they tried for years and had a website and posted about him, and finally, I think they just stepped back from the media and they just gave up. Not gave up. I'm sure they didn't in their hearts. I'm sure they're still wanting to know, but they wanted to get away from it and just go on with their lives at this point. So,
yeah,
it's strange, isn't it? Because some things happen, and as Adam said, it grabs nationwide, and it's like, but why would it be that story and not that story? Because for every one of those stories that grabs nationwide, newsreel and stuff, there must be 1,000, 10,000 that don't. So it makes you wonder, like, well, why that? And we had a famous case in the UK. I don't really hear of it, but the Madeleine McCann case, and it was, and effectively this little girl had sort of gone missing, and there's some wild sort of theories. But you think, well, why that? Why that story? Because the following day there was another girl went missing. Mm-hmm. But you don't literally you hear nothing about that, and then subsequently there's thousands of young girls that then go missing, unfortunately, and you don't hear anything about that. So it's weird that, and I don't know why. I don't know why it is that some seem to strike a chord and others don't. It's odd.
I try to focus on the cases that aren't the big headline cases. I'll never do a Madeleine McCann. I'll never do Bryce Laspisa. I don't know if you know him, but those cases have been saturated, and I try to find these cases that are not overdone. And a lot of them I've done, like the Brent Brand case, which was, I think, my case number 3. He was in my hometown. No one's ever done this case before. And I couldn't believe it because the whole story is insane, and he never got justice. And it's just something that I can't believe no other podcast has done. But when you research and you find these crazy facts, I hope more people do it, like after ours.
Yeah, go on. Tell us a little bit more about that one, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So Brent was 18 years old, and it was 19. Shoot, I think 87 or 86, one of the two. He was a gay teen, and he went to a party which was with gay adults because he had a crush on somebody that was at this party. And being gay in the 80s was pretty hard. So he was not out, but people kind of had the idea that he was gay. But he went to this party, and there was a priest called Father Jim, is what everybody called him, and that's who he had this crush on. The priest was like 30 years old. So he goes there and never comes home. And so his mom went to police. My son's missing. Like, what's going on? So the police didn't really take it serious. They did the whole thing like, he'll be back. He just ran away. And then about 2 weeks later, some kids riding on ATV found him in a ditch across the border in Illinois. And it was a huge investigation, but Father Jim said that he left, and around 2 a.m. he didn't know where he went. But then his story kept changing and evolved. And eventually he said that he was on the porch and they both fell asleep on the porch. And when he woke up, Brent was dead. So he panics and takes Brent's body, loads it up into a car by himself, and drives across the border, which is only probably 10-minute drive, and threw the body in a ditch in Illinois because he didn't want to be tied to this gay teen. And it became this huge witch hunt in Indiana. Like, they started investigating gay men who didn't know who Brent was, who weren't at this party, outing them. Just this huge ordeal. They weren't really trying to find justice for Brent. They were trying to do a witch hunt.
Yeah.
So Brent's body, in the meantime, and stuff I didn't talk about on the podcast, is the rumors that have gone around, because this is my hometown, is that influential men in the town were involved in this. And it wasn't just Father Jim that threw him in the ditch, which I find hard to believe anyway, that this one man just woke up at you would contact someone, hey, this guy's, I mean, no one's just going to do this unless you did something to him.
Yeah.
But the reason I think they threw him in Illinois is because I hate all speculative, don't sue me. That I think there was somebody in Illinois that could cover this case and hide what evidence they had. There was a lawsuit that Brent's mom did against the family. He had put the blood samples of Brent's body in the car windshield, and so the blood's tainted. He can never be tested. They embalmed his body, took his organs, threw his organs away. But one of the most interesting parts was they removed his hands and threw them away, burned them in a crematorium. And the only thing I can ever think of is, was there evidence under his nails? They didn't want anyone to ever find it. But, it's just a mistake that the coroner did, no ill intentions. It's just bizarre. And it's never been solved. He was clearly murdered. His blood alcohol level was like 0.04. They were trying to say, well, we think maybe he had a alcohol-induced death. But I don't know. It's this case that I remember hearing about growing up, and I heard all these rumors and all these things that allegedly happened. And when I started digging, I found out about the hands. I never even knew that he had been thrown into this ditch. I'd heard growing up that he died at this party. Mm-hmm. And then the house that the party was at, they had a grand jury come in. And the house, during the grand jury investigation, burnt down. But police say the house that fire had nothing to do with the case. That was just a coincidence. And some kid who was living there at the time, because the previous people had moved out because of the media attention, and new college kids had moved in. And one of them died in that fire. And he was in the room that Brent, where I think Brent died. I don't think he died on the porch. So it's just it's crazy. This whole case is crazy. The hands, the no resolution, the blood samples, the fact that they can never autopsy this body again. Something was covered up, and they had the right people to do it.
And that never got effectively sort of more more widely known that affected the sort of local press, local police, because that would be something they're like, hold on, that there is something clearly not right there. Like, not just police are covering one thing, or whether it's the police or whoever it is, and please don't sue me if you're listening, but if there were, let me quantify, if there was a cover up, it sounds like there was actually quite a lot of cover up going on for lots of reasons, if that makes sense. So I'm a bit surprised that that didn't gain traction, maybe in terms of sort of a slightly wider audience, unless the people who are covering up, I suppose, really did a good job and literally just shut it down, whether it's local newspapers, etc., etc.
Yeah, it was the 80s, so there wasn't internet to have this story just spread like crazy, but it's still interesting to me just that it never did get attention. And even when he went missing, there wasn't a single newspaper article that I could find about this kid's missing. Never once did anybody put in the paper that we have, and he's a high school kid. So the first article was when his body was found in that ditch.
Wow.
It's interesting.
It is.
I think the fact that he was a gay teen had a lot to do with the media not investigating or throwing it out there. There were rumors that he was at this party to have sex with all these men, which it's crazy. I mean, it could be, I don't know, but I don't think so. He's just an 18-year-old kid. I mean, and then this father, Jim, when he was arrested and arraigned, his mom bailed him out. It was like $500 bail. He leaves, and when he's supposed to come back, he couldn't come back because he had been kidnapped and beaten. And so they delayed this trial. And this article I didn't even talk about on the podcast either, because I found this one kind of at the end and I'd already written the script. So it was something I was going to do in our after show and talk about. But this whole thing, and all this guy got for moving his body was 2 years in prison. And one of the things that they gave him a fine for was he had lost his driver's license because he had a DUI. So they gave him a ticket for driving the body. So he was driving a car he wasn't supposed to be driving.
Wow.
To move a body.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong on every level.
But even go back to what you said at the start, it's like, I didn't really want anything to do with finding this body on my porch. So I know what I'll do. I'll dump it in a truck and drive it over a straight line and dump it. Hey, how does that work? Surely phone the police.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? Like,
exactly.
I tell you who would. Someone who's
Father
done
Jim.
something wrong and had a hand in it. That's who wouldn't.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I could go on that case and forever. It's just so strange. And it's probably my favorite case that I've done. I don't know if favorite's the right word, but the most interesting case that I've done.
Sorry, just one question then. In terms of sort of cases where you investigate and you do a little bit of digging, and I ask this of all of the true crime people that sort of come onto our podcast, are you ever worried of effectively the repercussions or of uncovering something that then might come back on you, and whether that's and I don't necessarily mean you're going to get some heavies around knocking on your front door, beating you up as such, although that probably is a concern. But is it more about I suppose your personal attack on somebody else, and then there's fines and there's repercussions and they sue you and everything else? Or does that ever sort of enter your brain or your mind? Because I'm just curious, because I ask the question to lots and lots and lots of other true crime people, and they all go, no, doesn't bother me at all.
It bothers me because I think about it. I'm like, geez, but I tell you, every case I do, my main goal is to be super respectful of the victim.
Yeah.
Never would I bring up something that's not proven, and I'm never going to bring up something that maybe paints them in a bad light. I mean, I'm not going to hold back facts, but I had one case, I'm not even going to say who it was, but after I was researching, I found out that this guy wasn't the greatest person.
Right.
But I didn't bring that part up. I said I changed it to, because I'd already written it, but I changed it to his family. He was an amazing individual, but he had done some things that definitely weren't something that like I would do. But now he wasn't a bad person. He just had different morals than I did, but I would never. My main goal is to do that, and everything I do is something that I find in an article or So if they want to sue somebody, sue that person that did the article. I'm just reporting the news basically here.
Yes.
So
Yeah. You're not actually going out fight. You're just collating it and facilitating that news being out there and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
And I wish I found brand new information that I could throw out there. And that's why I'll never do like one of those major cases, because I don't think I have anything extra to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Mara More, I think I'm saying her name wrong. Mara More, do you know her? She disappeared. It's one of the most famous disappearances in the States. But her case has been done thousands and thousands of times, and there's just nothing else to bring to it.
That's interesting.
Even when my favorite podcast does that one, I still listen.
Yeah.
But I know the facts, and there's never anything new, but it's still interesting.
No, that's it. Yeah, I know what you're saying. So have you ever had anybody contact you off the back of any of your episodes to say, look, I know this information, or has any member of the family of one of the victims ever reached out to you and said, look, thank you very much for doing that episode?
Yeah, actually I did. I had Brent Brand's cousin reach out to me, and she said that we did an amazing job on her case, which made me feel proud. Because that was the goal. I wanted her family to feel that he was painted in a great light. And then I've had a couple people reach out to me that want me to cover their family stories.
Oh, really?
And there's a girl that's reached out to me. Her mom was a prostitute and was murdered. And it's an interesting story, but we're new. We're super new podcast, and we've only been out for 3 months. So I don't know that I have the ability yet to interview and write the story at the same time. So I need to work up to that. And I don't want to do her an injustice. So I'm kind of keeping her in the sideline that I'm going to do this story, but I also want to get better at the craft here.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. When I listen, we've been going nearly 6 years now, 6 years next year. And when I listen back to the stuff that I recorded originally, it makes me cringe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
know what you mean.
You learn you cringe. Well, you've listened to our early episode.
Not from you. I listened back to some of mine already, and I'm like, oh man, I could have done that so much better.
Yeah, you do. And listen to this stuff, honestly, the stuff that I was doing, because I just did it by myself for the first 20 episodes, and it was diabolical. I know people enjoyed it, and I got a lot of positive feedback, which is what kept me going. But gee whiz, when I listen back to it, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
It is, but you find your flow as such, and we've been through various iterations of, we were a beer podcast, and then we were this, and then we were that, and now we sort of hit on this sort of formula, which we really enjoy. It really works. It's very conversational. We get to meet cool guys like yourself. We get to meet people from all over the world, and talk about the things that interest us. And everybody says, why do you do it? Well, I do it because I like to educate myself. I like meeting new people and hearing about their stories and their journeys and stuff. But you do find your flow. You slip into it, and it's just the little cues, little nuances of doing the podcast that, crikey, 5 years ago it was wooded, it was scripted, it was oh my god, it was awful, it was terrible.
Yeah,
I get it. I do want to talk about one of my favorite episodes you guys did.
Go on.
So you'll probably remember this because it was episode 69, and you made a huge deal about it.
Yeah, it sounds like
us.
Yeah. Do, yeah.
But you guys did true crime, and you each brought to the table one of your unsolved mysteries.
And
somebody brought Madeline McCann.
Yep.
And somebody brought DB Cooper.
Yeah, that was
you. Okay, those were my two favorites. And you guys, I listened to that just on the edge of my seat, because you guys would make great true crime podcasters if that's just what you did. Those two cases. I mean, there was the other one. There was a third one, and it's not that it didn't interest me, but it was a serial killer. I think it was a Zodiac killer, and it's not that serial killers are something else I'll never do. I don't know why. It's just too much information. Maybe if I ever did one, it would be Israel Keys, because he fascinates me a little bit from what he just killed. Whoever, do you know Israel? Have you heard of him?
I don't know. I don't think I have. No.
He just killed. He hid kill kits around the country, and then when he would travel back to Louisiana, he'd go to that kill kit, and whoever he found that was close or nearby, that's who he killed. It didn't matter. Didn't matter who it was, if it was man or if it was woman. And the only reason he got busted was because he got greedy, I guess, and he decided that one of the victims that he had killed, her dad had put a reward and he wanted that reward. So he went back to where she was in Alaska and she was frozen. So he sewed her eyes open and took a picture of her with a newspaper and sent it to the dad and said, she's still alive. Send me the money and I'll release her. And that's how he got busted. But his just the way he did things. And when I find these cases where we have no idea who the murderer is, he's always the first one that pops in my head. But did Israel Keys do this? Because there's no other explanation. But but those two cases, sorry, I squirreled a little bit. Madeline and DB Cooper, you guys did such a fantastic job on those. And
thank you. Cheers, dude.
And I knew both of those cases, but it was just like it was great to listen to those.
Yeah, it's weird because I'd sort of heard of DB Cooper, and then I'd obviously brought it up on the podcast and started talking, and I was like, yeah, sort of thing, And as he was going through, I was like, no way. And the more he was sort of, I say, given the facts, and the more he would then tell the story, I was like, nah, I'm not having it. And Bean's like, no, it's genuine. It did. I promise you.
It's crazy, and I'd love to know the answer to the question: did he survive when he jumped out of that plane? Because I believe he did. I think
I always thought he did too. And then I remember seeing an Unsolved Mysteries one time where I think it was a kid that found money buried in the sand, and since that money was never used, that's the only thing that makes me, unless he lost it, like it somehow got away from him as he was coming down, and that's why he never spent the money. But
it just seems a bit odd that it wouldn't be spent. So somebody must have found it. So why was it never? Because if it wasn't him, money just doesn't disappear. So somebody would have found it, and then somebody either would have claimed, I don't know.
It does out of my bank account.
Yeah. I always wonder too, like, how do they check every single serial number that comes through? If he spent those in the gas station, are they really tracing every single? I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it does beg a question, doesn't it? But for me though, again, that was the key one. It's like if he didn't spend it, then if the money wasn't spent, it wasn't him. As I say, somebody finds it, and even if you hand it in, the story would say the money was found and was handed in. So a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I fully enough, one of the episodes that we did do that is quite popular. Well, it's actually, I think it's our most popular episode. Actually, we covered. Now, normally at Christmas we do stupid episodes because hardly anybody listens to our Christmas episode. Everybody's got bad.
I'll remember that. My Christmas episodes are gonna be stupid.
Yeah, look, well,
just silly ones. Yeah, everyone's on holiday. Nobody listens. It's fine. Just keep the content going. It's not how bad or good it is. Just keep going.
Don't take our advice on anything, please. And that doesn't just go for podcasting. So we normally do half-hour silly episodes over Christmas because hardly anybody listens. But this one time we decided to do one. So where we are, so I think it was December the 22nd, 1990. There was a guy called Stephen Johnson, and he was killed local to us. So obviously, we're English and we love a good castle. And if you look out of my guest bedroom window, you can see a castle. It's not a real castle; it's a folly. So it's been created to look like a castle on top of this hill. And just before Christmas, this guy's a taxi driver, and his throat was slit, and he was left for dead there. And to this day, that crime is unsolved. And 30 plus years, 35 years this year. And Staffordshire police have not been successful they've arrested a few people over the years and not done anything. So we did that episode just in the hope of it might jog somebody's memory, somebody who knew something, because somebody must know who this person is who's done this. And it's the same for your crimes that you'll have covered. Not just the guy who's done it. They will talk. Someone will be suspicious about their behavior at that time. And we wanted to put it out there. And same as yourself, when you hear off somebody, we got an email off this guy's daughter. So at the time, she was about 5 or 6, and now she's 40 years old. And we got an email off her thanking us for keeping the case alive and for sharing out there. And like yourself, that meant more to me than anything else that we've ever had of anybody who's ever got in touch with us to say they've enjoyed an episode. That blew my mind that person would take that time to drop that email.
That they heard it and that they reached out.
It's amazing, but
and still unsolved.
So
still unsolved now.
If you do ever want to do a UK version of your show, then that's a case that definitely needs covering, because it's
I've looked at crimes everywhere, so I'm sure UK will be on the list.
Well, there is one. I know I was going to get to it a little bit, but there was one of your episodes that I listened to the other day, and it's got a lovely, fluffy name, the Gummy Baby.
Oh, the Gummy Baby.
My
Listen.
God, that blew my mind.
The Gummy Baby had more twists and turns than any case I've ever researched. It's just, and I also said I won't do a serial killer, and I'm not going to do a kid, especially like a violent death kid, because it's too much for me.
Yeah.
But I did do the Gummy Baby because it was about her, but it was so centered around that just web of lies. And man, that case, that actually I think has more listens than any other case that I've done so far. So
it's mind blowing. I mean, I don't know if you want to just fill Gaz in brief. Oh yeah, we say briefly. Actually, there's so much went on.
I was good. About 5-10 minutes, a whole podcast,
dude. Honestly, it's mind blowing.
It's mind blowing. So I'll give you a little synopsis here.
Yeah.
There, this woman, Kim, she was 20 years old, and she married this man when she was pregnant, and blah blah blah. She has this baby, and her and her husband get divorced. So she doesn't really want this baby. She's like, I don't want this. So she leaves it. Leaves it in an apartment, moves in with her new boyfriend, and the baby starves to death. But the weird thing is the grandparents lived right downstairs, and for months, no one searched, no one knew where this baby was. So the landlord of the apartment building calls and says, hey, can you check the apartment, make sure I know Kim's out, make sure there's nothing up there and I can re-rent it. So the grandparents go up there, find the baby almost mummified, and call the police. So the police come, and they have to make sure this story is correct. So they do DNA testing on the baby to make sure this is actually Kim's and she's not just some random person killing other babies. And when they do the DNA test, it turns out that Kim was not the mother of this baby, that she didn't have mother-daughter DNA. She had sister DNA. So the baby was actually the daughter of the grandmother.
Wow.
And this is a South Korea case. So it has a lot of secrecy around it, and they don't use real names. So I use Jane and Kim.
Yeah.
But Jane says she was never pregnant, so it couldn't possibly be hers. And Jane's husband says, I saw my wife. She wasn't pregnant. But Jane had this baby after Kim delivered it, Kim went into postpartum. And Jane took the baby, and that's when they think she swapped the babies. Right. What she did with Kim's real baby, we don't know.
There's 2 babies missing here, dude. There's 2 babies missing.
2 babies.
That's this crazy part about this case.
Yeah, and there's so many more twists. It's just so many more. I don't even know where to go with that. It's just without giving away too much here. One thing that was interesting is that Jane, the grandmother, had taken months off of work right around the time that the baby was born. So they assume that, okay, that's when Jane had the baby and swapped them. Yeah. So when they confront Jane with this, she says, I didn't take any time off work. There's another woman at my office that her name was Jane as well. So it must have been her that took the time off.
Wow. Jesus.
Honestly, if you listen to one episode that isn't Tall Boy Radio, I would say to our listeners, go and listen to that, because I was listening to that. I was like, well, and when the denouement of it, when you say that this was a sister and not a daughter, it's like, what on earth is how's this happened? And then you start asking the question, well, hang on a minute, because she had a baby. She had a baby in the hospital. She went into the post place. Yeah. And so where the hell's that baby gone?
Yeah.
It's mind blowing, honestly. And to be fair, the way you tell it is fantastic. You've got a very good way of telling a story and keeping it respectful. I'll say that for you. It's not. I
appreciate that.
It's not shock horror stuff. You know what I mean? It is a shock. It's shocking scenario.
Yeah,
and it is horrific, but you don't tell it that way. You narrate it perfectly, and that one absolutely blew my mind. That was utterly, utterly bizarre.
That was the first case that I actually had. I didn't really tell a lot of my friends that I did this podcast because if it didn't work out, I didn't want to be like, I suck. So I told like my 2 best friends, and then I have a co-host, which is one of my best friends. So I didn't tell, but I got texts because one of my friends listened to this, and they were just like, "This is insane." And then they text a friend, and then I start getting all these texts going, "This story is crazy." So that was the first case that I got that validation that it was a cool case.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, it's interesting that, we in fact, we've had some of our friends guest on the podcast, haven't we, a couple of times, and it's funny how people do that as well. I don't really, we had Todd on, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? He doesn't really talk to his family about his podcast or that, and he loves his episodes that he puts out there. Why is that then? What was it nervousness to, how it could be received?
Yeah, and you guys pointed this out in our little green room, but my accent, I didn't know if it was going to translate well as a storyteller. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit. I'm an introvert. I have my social media locked down, and my friends are my friends. They're not just random strangers. So opening myself up to everybody is something completely new to me. So I kept it in my back pocket. I told my sister, and she's of course my biggest fan. And then I ended up telling my brother actually last week because we got our podcast got picked up by Darkcast Network, which is just indie podcasters and they have a lot of, there's like 26 of them. And the woman that runs it, she reached out to me through Instagram and said, "Hey, I listen to your podcast. I don't normally do this. Normally people apply, but I love your podcast and I'd like you to be a part of our group." And I was like, heck yeah, I would. I'd love. I already knew what Darkcast podcast was because my favorite podcast is, and then they were gone and they were a part of it. So when she reached out and said, "I want you," I was like, done, get us in there. And it's just we just support each other and give promos for each other and help each other out. But it's just a really cool group. So that and you guys reaching out like really kind of validated that I felt like I was going the right direction.
Oh yeah, dude. No, honestly, you have the perfect voice for it. Honestly, you do. And like I say, I thought your accent was. I thought it was Mississippi. My cousin is American. I'll probably get a message when he's listening to this saying, "Dude, why do you think that guy?"
He's like, "I don't sound like that guy. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is I'll get a bit of stick off him for it, and rightly so, some would say. But no, honestly, yeah, fantastic. It is fantastic. It's good to be part of a group. We do a little bit with a group called the Poor House Group on Twitter. They'll share some of our stuff. We share some of their stuff from time to time, and it's good. And isn't it interesting though? And you have an idea when you put a podcast out there, and we've said this before. Theoretically, you're competing against the guys that you're in a group with there. You're competing with them for listeners in many ways, but people are very warm and they're very welcoming and they're very collaborative, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And so far, I mean, I'm new, so we haven't done a lot of the same cases, which I think that's pretty cool. That when they do a case, it's like I wasn't going to do that. There's the biggest crime podcast is Crime Junkies, and I listen to that thing all the time. But I will never do episode that they've done if I can avoid it, just because they're so good at it and they're so popular and I can't compete with them. So I do watch theirs, but yeah, I'm sure that we're going to in Darkcast do something that someone else has done eventually, and that's fine because we're telling them in different stories. It's different points of views. Some people are telling them by themselves. I have a co-host that listens to it, so she's hearing it for the first time, and I like our format.
So that's how it works then. So obviously you prepare the case and you share it out there. And McKenzie then, is it McKenzie?
McKenzie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Sorry. I'm terrible with names.
No, that was good.
That was pretty good for me. Yeah. I just can't retain names. Yeah. So she's hearing it then for the first time.
She is. And I love McKenzie. She gets nervous and sometimes she sounds like she's reading and she's not. She's just answering naturally. And I'm like, why do you sound like you're reading something? And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, I don't know. I do so much editing for her and she knows it. But the Michael Negretti case, she said something about, yeah, and when somebody takes you, you don't know if they were alone or they were asleep. And I said, asleep? Like he was asleep and they just took him. But and she coughs. She has this cough that we've now learned that I've never noticed before, that I have to edit her cough out constantly. So
Oh yeah, we used to edit quite heavily. Now I've got a bit lazy. I'm this close from just calling it unfiltered and just putting the whole thing out there.
But when we first started, and I probably still do it now, I try not to as much as I used to. I was massive in the and ums, so that the fillers. And Beans said, he edited this one episode and he must have got it through like a minute's worth of editing, and I must have had about 20 or 30 ers or erms, and then he just said, you know what, fuck it, it's just taking me so long. We'll just forget it, because yeah, it was literally taking him like, and I mean hours and hours and hours just to edit them out. And at that point, it was just like, dude, just let it go natural. It's
Just
fine.
let it go.
It's joyless, isn't it? Editing, it's absolutely joyless.
Yeah, it is. But I read these comments on other podcasts because I want to see what people are saying, and they'll say something like, "If you say like one more time," I'm like, shit, I know I do that. But my Mackenzie's big one is like. My big one is so. Why do I do that?
I don't know what I probably have a number of bad.
I don't know what yours are. Just a pause and then a thought, but a pause and a thought is much better than
yeah.
Oh, and when you listen to it back, oh my god, that sound horrendous.
Nobody likes to have their own voice.
No. Just a question for you, and just sort of, we had a bit of a left turn there. Just getting back to sort of cases and stuff. Have you ever, or whether you ever have, or what would you do if you ever did, sort of start digging and then almost come across something that potentially is new that people haven't thought of it in terms of whether it be evidence or whether it be, I don't know, potential perps, etc. What have you thought about that? What would happen? Is I don't know. I'm just curious in terms of, if you were digging and all of a sudden you dug to the extent that actually shit, this is new. What would you do with that?
Oh, I'd run with that. That would be my promo. That would be everything. That would be my golden ticket. I'd be through. If I found something that I didn't, I mean, everything I find is going to be something that is probably already reported. So it's not like I'm going to go to the police and say, "Hey, I found this." They'll be like, But I definitely would run with that if I find something that, like if we go with Brent Brand, his hands, which I know no one in Vincennes that I asked about my hometown, if they remember that case, knew about his hands being lost and cut off and burned. So that was super important information for me to put out there, just because it was unknown, and that's kind of a hook there, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow. That is that. I mean,
I do have one of my best friends as a police officer, so if I find something that's really crazy, I'll just go to him.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I've got something.
Hey, I got something for you. He'd be like, "I'm retiring soon. Get out of here."
Leave me out of it. Leave me out of it. Yeah. So interesting enough, you know, so my cousin is also a police officer, and he's a police officer in San Antonio. And one of the cases that I listened to recently was Julie Mott. Is that the name?
Yes, Julie Mott.
So and that was based in San Antonio. That itself was a very, very unusual case, wasn't it?
That was. I didn't even know if I was going to do it, because I looked to see if other podcasts had done it before, and I saw there was one. I think one had done her case, and it's not like there's not a ton of information. It's all another case where you just have to speculate what the heck happened. And I'll tell you what I believe happened. So just so the little synopsis: Julie Mott died of cystic fibrosis, and during her funeral, the family comes and they grieve her. After they leave, someone steals Julie's body, and it's never been found. So there's all kinds of theories that maybe her boyfriend took the body so that she wasn't cremated, because he said she didn't want to be cremated, but her mom and her had sat down and she wanted to be cremated and she wanted to be sprinkled in the ocean. So she did. So cremation statement. But sometimes I read Reddit and web sleuths just to get what people are saying. And somebody believed that he took her body to bury it in a spot that was special to them, so that he could visit it and basically have her all to himself, and that would be his and her spot, which I think is plausible. He seemed a little off, and this is all alleged. I'm sure he's a very nice person. All alleged and speculative, but it was interesting because that made sense to me, because I can't imagine any other reason what someone would want besides him, her body.
But right, I've got one burning question.
Go ahead.
How do you steal a body? Like how does that even happen? Like you just said there, people think that he stole the body. How? Like surely the body is monitored to the nth degree until it is either put in the ground or it's cremated.
They moved it off into a room. They moved it off into a room to cremate her later, because she was supposed to be cremated. But Julie, she was small. She probably weighed 100 pounds, if that.
Right.
and with that, with her illness, like I'm sure she was probably 90, 80 pounds.
Yeah.
So him just picking her up and I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even want to touch a dead body. Like I don't,
no.
let alone move it. I don't know.
No. Gee whiz, yeah. I mean that's an intriguing one. I will ask my cousin about that. He's away at the moment. He's in Nashville, so I'll drop him a message and just see if he has heard of that. Because I'll be curious. If he's got. I'm not saying he's going to look at police files. I'm not getting him in any trouble.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
Getting those files. I found an article that said something about, because this funeral home, just so you know, it lost Julie's body and they had to pay $8 million. And 5 years later, they swapped 2 bodies again, but they didn't get stolen. They just swapped them and buried someone else's mom and the other people found at the funeral. I found an article where it had happened before Julie Mott too, where they had mixed up 2 bodies, and then I lost that article. I couldn't find it. I researched and looked, and so I couldn't put it in my episode because I started to think, did I make that up? I know I read that, but did I make that up? So I didn't put it in the episode, but I know I read that. I know I read that they'd swapped them out before. This wasn't their first rodeo. And they're the biggest funeral home in San Antonio, and I think they have other cities as well. So
that's terrifying.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
Yeah. How much research then do you do into these cases? How much work goes into them?
A lot. I have this subscription to these old newspaper articles, which is where I really like to get a lot of information from, because as news, they don't do it that much anymore. So when I read those, that's all we had back then. And I've done a lot of older cases. So I would say I spend hours researching, and days. I'm not talking weeks, but maybe 2 days, 3 max. It depends on how. Brent Brands took a lot longer because I really went in depth in that one, and it had never been done before. So it was pulling from scratch. And I don't like to listen to other people's podcasts about, like the Julie Mott. I didn't want to listen to what they had said because I didn't want to steal their information or regurgitate exactly what they had said. So I try to avoid anyone else's podcast about the subject.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way of doing things, I think. It is. I mean, we should probably take a page from that, but so Vic Ferrari is a police officer who's guested on our episode a few times, and we call him our booking agent as well, because he sorts us out. When he has a guest on his show, he says, listen, I've got this guy on, they're really good, do you want them on your show? And we say, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And then normally to get the questions, I'll watch his episode to find out what they talked about.
But again, you mentioned it, and it's not necessarily a regurgitation of almost word for word, because when Vic is a great guy, and we got on really, really well with Vic, and he is tremendous. But he will ask a certain question or a certain series of questions, and then he'll say to them, "Oh, you need to hook up with the Turbo Radio guys. They'll be pretty cool. You'll be pretty cool with them." But we will ask a completely different set of questions, and we might go through a slightly different case, so it just comes from different perspectives. So you're not necessarily just regurgitating the same thing over and over and over. Just going back to what you just said there, though, once you'd put the podcast out, would you then go back and listen to the episode of somebody who'd already done it to see if it was significantly different after the event?
Actually, what I have done before is I've written the podcast, we've recorded it, and then I've gone back and listened to see if there was some major information that I just totally missed, or something that I messed up, because I don't want to I had one case, Zelig Williams. I said something like his phone, when he went missing, and he'd left his phone in the car, and somebody messaged me on TikTok and said, hey, Zelig's phone wasn't in the car. They don't know where his phone is. And I was like, damn it. Why?
Yeah.
And it's something you can't go back and fix. And it's just a small detail, but it's like, how did I mess that up? Yeah. So I do, if I listen to it then, and if I hear something I did wrong or some brand new information, I may call McKenzie and be like, hey, can we record another little snippet there? We got to add something in. But
I listened to that episode today, funnily enough, actually, the Zelig Williams one.
Did you?
Good episode. Yeah, good episode. It is a good episode. Yeah. Well, I was quite fortunate. The wife's gone over to her sister, so took the kids, so I had a bit of peace and quiet. So that was quite nice. So I got to listen to some podcast today. Yeah. So I do like my Sundays when they're lazy like that.
Yes. I have this case. It's not this week, but next week's episode, and it's the newest case I've ever done. So this guy was murdered in 2020, and I'm super excited about it. Because was one other podcast I saw that had done him. I don't know if it's like excited is the right way, but I can't believe no one's done this case. It's strange. His killer was caught on camera, but they have no idea who it is. and they were dressed in black, and they have this really strange pigeon-toed walk where their feet go inward.
Oh,
And I feel like it, and he's a 24-year-old guy who had no known enemy, so no reason why anyone would kill this kid. But it looked like a hired hit. It seems like the way that this person thought about the kill, prepared for the kill, did the kill, escaped, wiped up their DNA with bleach. It's so strange. But that video, I'm like that. And since this is so new, I'm hoping this is one that someday I can do an update on and say, we know who it is, and here it is, and here's the update, and this was the killer. And
that would be nice, wouldn't it? Because these cases, where you don't have an answer to it, they are fascinating for that reason. It's the unknown, and I guess it's the same when you consider doing the paranormal. It's the unknown, so and that's what makes it interesting, because nobody has an answer to it. It's
nobody has an answer.
Yeah, when you do yours, when you share your take on it. But it would be nice. It would be nice, wouldn't it, just to have that. This is the guy who done it. This is the guy who's been brought to justice, and this is this is how long he's going to be spending behind bars. Been nice to update with just once and all.
I'm praying. I would love to have that, especially for him. I think he really seemed like he was a great guy, so I really want to bring him justice someday.
Yeah,
not me. Great. I want someone to bring him justice someday.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So do you release it on Patreon first? Am I right in saying?
What was that?
Do you release it on Patreon first? Am I right in saying you do?
Yeah, so Patreon goes today. So Sunday is Patreon early episode release, and then Tuesday is the public release. And Patreon's 0 commercials, which I don't have commercials anyway, so it's not really a big deal. But I do have promos for other podcasts from Darkcast in there, but I don't put those in my Patreon, just so you have the clear.
Right.
No, nice. Yeah, it's not. We haven't done Patreon. We are registered on it just in case we ever get our act together and get a little bit more organized.
Never gonna happen.
No, it's not.
I think I jumped the gun. I got on Patreon way too early. No one's there, but it's okay.
Listen, you want to be there. You want to do it early, and then I'm confident. I'm confident with your podcast that people will be jumping on board, in droves. Because, like I say, it's a really good podcast. It's perfect time. I listen to it on my drive to work normally, which is about half an hour. So I'll listen to it there, and if it hasn't finished, then guess what? I'll sit in the car park and wait till the end. It's perfect. Honestly, it's just perfect for that commute. So one of the things you see nowadays, okay, and you see it on TikTok and what have you, super sleuths. Has that ever interested you when people start tracking current cases and trying to get to the bottom and trying to solve them where the police have been unsuccessful? Has that ever intrigued you or interested you?
No, I don't. And it's not that I discount what they do. I think they put a lot of fake. Not everybody. There's a couple that put a lot of fake information. I think it actually hurts the case, and they put emphasis on the suspect that may be innocent. And I don't ever want to do that. I don't ever want to ruin someone's life. Just be like, I already talked about Julie Mott's boyfriend. Well, I'm not the first. He's always been a suspect, and the police dub him a suspect. But I don't ever want to do that. I don't ever want to accuse someone or even hint that someone did something that they didn't do that hasn't been out there. So no. It's the long answer to that short no, I don't.
but again, you're looking and you think, because there are people out there that effectively will go and try to investigate, open cases, and it's like, but how much access have you actually got to police records, to forensic DNA, and it's like, really, like you haven't got, because it just doesn't happen. The police don't go, oh, here you go, here are all the case files, crack on.
Go ahead. We can't do it. You can.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't happen that well. I say it doesn't. I don't suspect it happens that way. And these people that will turn around and say, oh, well, I got access to the police files and I helped them along the way. No, bollocks. You didn't, and you just basically talking a bit of shit. Because there's no way you're going to end up with the police. They're not just going to hand them out and go, oh, here you go. Here's some podcaster or investigator or sleuth. Oh, there you go. We couldn't do it, but you crack on. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. No, I'm not having it. Sorry, that was me. That was my little rant over. Sorry.
Yeah, put your soapbox away now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm with you. I love TikTok, and there's a true crime guy. Creep Town is his podcast. His name's Silas. He does a great job. And when he first started out, now he's millions of followers, but when he first started out, he maybe had 100,000 or something like that. But I told him, he was one that I reached out to and said, can you do the Michael Negretti case? Like, this case has been in my head for years. And he messaged me back and said, I've never heard of this. And so he put out a TikTok about it. And that really started drawing people back into Michael Negretti. And I thought that was so cool. And I was like, I want to do that. I want people to get reinvested in this case and maybe find answers. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why you put it out there, isn't it? That hopefully you will find answers to these questions. So, of all the cases that you've covered,
mm-hmm.
you had the opportunity to sit down and interview somebody related to that case, who would you like to sit down with?
Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I like to ask these difficult questions with no
warning.
I
was going to say with no warning, just
chuck it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, I would say the Gummy Baby, but I know they're just going to lie to me, so there's nothing there. Honestly, I would love to talk to Michael, and I actually thought about reaching out to Michael Negretti's brother. He posted something on Reddit years ago that said he thinks that his brother was getting involved in drugs and that maybe he had taken something that night, and when he left the dorm, it just made him vulnerable, and that's when someone abducted him.
Yeah.
But I want to know where he got that information. And I'm sure it's from Michael's friends that he's talked to over the years. But as far as what was released to the public, was Michael was not into drugs. He was just a good kid who played a saxophone in the band and was just starting college. And maybe he was experimenting in drugs. I'd like to know. And I'd like to know what he knows. Because, the family always has more information. And their private investigator that I paid $500 to, like, what did he find out? I never found that out either. So.
No. Oh, yeah, gee whiz, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's probably on a nice week's holiday on something on the back of that.
Probably.
Yeah, everybody's entitled to holidays. Everybody's entitled to. So
he better have done something.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm being facetious. I apologize. So, in terms of cases, have you got anything in the pipeline that obviously you've got the one that's coming out next week, anything that you want to cover that you've not sat down and recorded yet? You don't have to tell us who it is, but something that really sort of wets your whistle.
There's one, and I really want to do it. It's McKenzie, one of the few cases that McKenzie knows. McKenzie is a true crimer. I'll give her that, but she doesn't know anybody. I could tell her Amelia Earhart, we're going to cover that today, and she'd say, who? She is not up on names. And sometimes when I start to tell the story, something might click, but there's one that she really likes, and I'll tell you the name. It's Tamala Horsford. I think Horsford. And she was a black woman who went to a sleepover with a bunch of white women and ended up dead. And the police just ruled it an accident. And the family hired this pathologist who re-examined the body and said, her neck's broken. She's had severe upper trauma, like someone had thrown her over a balcony after she was dead. Wow. It's fascinating. These women are high society women, and they've all gone into hiding, and the internet. So Crime Junkie did this one, which is one of the reasons why I'm kind of, I don't know if I will, but these women were attacked online when Crime Junkie did it and went into hiding. And then they started to attack this other woman who was friends with the woman who died, and they released her public information and all this other stuff. It's a super interesting case. And I like to tell it because maybe no one's heard it that listens to my podcast, and I think everyone should. And it wasn't that long ago. I think it may have been 7 years ago at this point, but they've closed it. They're like, accident, she's just dead, and I don't believe it.
Wow. Yeah. That's a rough one.
And I suppose, you look at sort of 7 years ago, as such, or, cold cases, they get revisited all the time. But, with the involvement of the internet and there's a lot more information now that's out there, and there's a lot more people that are reviewing it, researching it, so I suppose to try to separate actually the genuine stuff from actually the BS can be quite difficult.
Yeah. There's a lot of BS out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of BS on Reddit, which I love to read Reddit because I think it's so interesting. And sometimes these people are on Reddit are so believable in what they're saying. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not. There's no facts to back it up. But I included one Reddit what they said in one of my episodes, because they didn't say anything bad, and they didn't say anything that seemed like, if you're going to make something up, you're going to make a crazy story. I don't even remember what it was, but it was just something that was extremely factual, and so I added it. But that's probably one of the only things that I thought it could be BS. But I also said a Reddit user said this, so you can take that for what you want.
Just cover yourself, cover your ass. Yeah. It's not me putting it out there. I'm just telling you what somebody else has said. That's it.
Yeah, we'll tell you that one the hard way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we normally wrap these things up round about the hour mark, but before we let you go, we need you to share where people can find your podcast online, where they can find you on social media, and the different. Obviously, you're going to be on pretty much every platform.
So I hope we're on every. I don't know. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast as the Final Trace Podcast, and our Instagram is the Final Trace Podcast, and TikTok is the Final Trace Podcast. I started a Facebook, but I've done nothing with it. It's just too much. There's too much social media to deal with, all that stuff. And then Threads, which I think just when I post something on Instagram, it goes to Threads. So
yeah, we do the same. Yeah, we do the same. I don't think I've ever opened the Threads app, if I'm really honest.
I opened it actually today, and I saw you guys on there. So
you're doing well. I wasn't on there.
And then our Patreon. Don't forget our Patreon, which is patreon.com, the Final Trace Podcast.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Go out there and send some money towards these guys for quality output. That's what we want. That's what we want for you. Guys, you got any final questions?
No final questions as such. Just a massive thank you really from me to Hopper, giving up his time just to come onto our podcast and talk through some of the cases that he's been involved in and give us a little taste as to what's coming up in the near future. So just a massive thank you from me, really, Hopper. Genuinely, enjoyed the hour that we spent with you. Just I say chatting around the case and stuff. So look forward to the next time, because we get guests on all the time, and for quite a few will go, look, we really look forward to doing it again, and if you'd be willing to come on our podcast again. There's the odd few that we might not, but genuinely, we would love to have you back on in the future. Perhaps talk about some of the cases that you've just mentioned there and how that went, etc. So genuinely look forward to the next time we can hook up.
Indeed. There's also the odd one we can't have on again for legal reasons.
Yeah. There's one or two, but we don't talk about them.
We don't talk about them. That's on our past.
No, I hope you guys invite me back, because this was really fun, and because I'm the Final Trace, I really feel like I can do a couple of paranormal episodes in there, so they'll probably be snuck in there somewhere.
Yeah, why not?
I like that.
It's true crime, but Halloween's coming up.
That's it. I've got my Ouija board sat about, and the guy hasn't just seen yet. But no, we do, and this is one of the reasons that we do what we do. We're very broad, and we should probably narrow it down a little bit so that we carry over some of our listenership from one week to the next.
Yeah.
But we love talking about the paranormal. We love talking about true crime, and we love talking about beer and whiskey and things like that as well. So we keep ours really super broad. But I do, if I'm choosing to listen to a podcast, probably this is the last kind of podcast I'd ever listen to, if I'm really honest. It's stuff like that you're putting out there. So the best thing I could say is just keep doing what you're doing, because people like me will absolutely lap it up.
I appreciate that. You guys are great. This has been fun.
No, absolutely. And we will, of course, extend our welcome to have you back on at some time in the near future. But as for us, we're done for this week. And next week, we will, of course, be talking about something entirely different altogether.